So welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Kim Masterson, and I'm thrilled to be your host for this webinar. We're going to be focused today on the importance of increasing visibility across your supply chain from the first mile to the last mile. We've got a lot of great content for you today, and our speakers have put together a lot of information to share with you. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and we'll start off with Carissa from Anvyl.
Hey everyone, my name is Carissa. I'm a senior customer success manager here at Anvyl. So I get to work with a lot of our customers. I help with onboarding them and also taking them through their Anvyl journey. I'll work with them on different projects that they have, like integrations and all of those things. So I definitely have an ear for all of my customers. A little bit more about Anvyl. Anvyl is a purchase order management tool that our customers use to not only automate their purchase order processes, but also collaborate with their internal teams and their external teams on the progress of those purchase orders. And they're also able to share data and information like files, shipment tracking, and any updates to those POs. Happy to be here.
Excellent, Carissa. Thank you so much. I just heard we have one of our panelists, Connor, is having a little bit of technical difficulties, but he'll be coming in just a moment. So I would like to introduce Francesca and have her give her a little bit of information about herself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Francesca, one of the senior partner managers at ShipBob. So I work a lot with the partners on this call, as well as our customers, if we need to build an integration or solve a solution for something that maybe a partner could help solve outside of what ShipBob does. I came from the sales side of ShipBob, so I'm very fluent in logistics, as well as what works for customers and different strategies. And just a little bit about ShipBob, we are a fulfillment partner as well as a tech partner. So we work with people in a couple different ways. Historically, brands have outsourced fulfillment with us completely for omni-channel as well as global fulfillment. We moved into a space of our warehouse management system, actually powering different brands' warehouses, as well as doing warehousing services for different marketplaces and service providers that aren't able to do fulfillment on their own. So just consider us as a fulfillment expert in a lot of different areas, tech, logistics, everything that kind of connects to your brand. And excited to share some content with you guys and answer some questions. So thanks for having me, Anvyl.
No, thank you so much for being here, Francesca. Thank you. And Connor will be joining us very, very shortly. Before we get to his content, I will have him introduce himself. Great. So let's dive into why logistics visibility matters. All of us on this call know that operational teams are absolutely being bombarded with both internal and external disruptions, delays, things getting thrown at you at all times. But that's why it's really more important than ever for brands to not just focus on, but also to really invest in tracking and visibility tools so they can quickly adjust to those disruptions as they come and really keep their supply chain on track. Here at Anvyl, and I know for the other panelists that we work with, we work with a lot of brands, and we see which ones are doing this really well, and that understand that the need for visibility, it really doesn't just start when you have your goods and they're ready to be shipped out to your warehouse. It starts way before that. Those brands that are kind of crushing it in this area really have a clear understanding of how their goods are tracking from the moment that first purchase order is written and issued, all the way to them being fully delivered there to their customers or retails. So our goal today is to educate you about some of those tools available. Our speakers have put together some really great content and a great lineup, walking through some of the challenges that they see, that we anticipate a lot of you brands that are on this call are probably feeling some of those challenges, and giving some really tangible, real world solutions for how brands that we're working with are tackling those really tough problems. And then what's always my favorite part is they've also curated some real world examples of brands that we work with, and walking through what strategies they've put together and how they're kind of winning in the space and getting that competitive advantage with having that complete visibility across their supply chain, from the first mile all the way through to that last mile. So I'd love to just jump right into the content. And so I'm going to get it kicked off with Carissa here from Anvyl.
All right, thanks, Kim. So just to remind you guys, Anvyl is a purchase order management platform or software that our customers use to manage and automate their purchase order processes and also collaborate with their internal and external teams. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Next slide, Kim. All right. So logistics visibility across the first mile is not just a convenience that we think our customers should have. We think it's like an absolute necessity for brands to ensure that they're successful throughout their supply chain from end to end. At some point, right, your customer or your customers at the end are waiting for their goods to be available for them in the store or be sent to them. Well, it matters that you start with a lot of visibility and a lot of transparency so that those goods get to your customer as soon as possible without any delays or any disruption in the customer experience. So by providing real-time data, predictive analytics, enhanced communication in the first mile, a brand really enables themselves to enhance their market positioning and also make sure that their end customer has a great experience. So having, of course, enhanced logistics visibility in the first mile leads to better inventory management, improved coordination with your supplier at origin, proactive problem solving, so not being reactive to a problem that comes up. You guys are solving the problems before they even happen. There's also cost efficiency, saving dimes or dollars where it counts. And lastly, and ultimately what we've been talking about is making sure that your customers are satisfied. They want to see that the goods are available to them and not out of stock, and they want to make sure that they know when it's coming. Making sure that you start at that first mile and make sure that things are going well will lead to great things happening on the end. All right, Kim, next slide. All right. So more and more brands are realizing that they need visibility in their supply chain from end to end. Having visibility in your supply chain helps, again, for your team to be more proactive rather than reactive to issues that come up, and also having accurate data or having data that you can rely on to make informed decisions in the long run helps to save your team time, save your team dollars, and also save your team from experiencing any disruptions in the supply chain. We surveyed brands in, I believe, late 2023, early 2024, to get their ideas on what they need in their supply chain and what they're looking to do with their supply chain. And across those brands that we surveyed, 24% of those brands wanted more visibility into their inventory management. 18% of brands wanted more visibility into their purchase order management, and 14% of those brands wanted more visibility into their communication with their suppliers. We often hear from our customers that are joining Anvyl, hey, we do not get enough information from our suppliers about when goods are going to ship, where they are in the purchase order process. And so these are not surprising stats for us. These are all very much expected. However, it does seem like brands are really looking for more visibility across their supply chain. And we, Anvyl, and our partners are here to help with that. All right, Kim, we can move on to the next slide. All right. So we know that first mile logistics have its challenges, right? What I want to do in the next couple of slides is highlight 3 specific challenges that brands work with and that they face, and some tangible solutions that Anvyl can offer you and offer brands and solve those problems pretty quickly. So Kim, you can move on to the next slide. Right. So one of the big challenges that we see is that customers have a lack of visibility into their incoming shipments. I've even heard cases where our customers have said, hey, sometimes a shipment will arrive to our warehouse. We don't know when it shipped. We don't know where it came from. This is the first time we're hearing about it. We open it and it's actually our purchase order 123 that we ordered 3 months ago. We weren't expecting this for another 2 weeks, or maybe we were expecting this 2 weeks ago, but they're really lacking that visibility into their incoming shipments. So what's the solution there? Brands should be able to visualize their incoming shipments in a single unified view instead of having to go into their purchase order management tool or having to then go to their freight forwarder's website or then going to their spreadsheets that they're looking through, or maybe some emails between their freight forwarder and their supplier. They should have a unified place that allows them to track their shipments in relation to their purchase orders in one place. Anvyl offers that. So with our platform, you gain complete transparency, ensuring that you're able to view your purchase order data along with the shipment data that is carrying that purchase order from your supplier's facility all the way to your delivery warehouse. So for example, what Anvyl allows you to do is take that tracking number, let's say it's a container or a master bill of lading or maybe a master airway bill, and you're able to enter it onto your purchase order page within Anvyl. What Anvyl will do from there is give you real-time updates on that tracking tracking information so that you can see where your purchase order is from the time that it departs from your supplier's facility down to when it arrives to your delivery warehouse. Instead of having to go to different locations, everything lives within the Anvyl platform, and Anvyl is proactively letting you know about any delays to that shipment that are happening. All right, Kim, we can move on to the next slide. Another issue that we've seen, or another challenge that we see brands face, is efficient payment tracking. So managing payment tracking can be daunting for anyone, right? It often leads to delays if there's any discrepancies, or if the team doesn't have visibility into whether something was paid or not. Sometimes there are errors with payment. Maybe the payment didn't go through, or maybe payment wasn't received in time. And all of that can just lead to disruptions in your supply chain, right? If someone doesn't get paid, sometimes it delays production. It might also delay the shipment of a product. So the product is just sitting on your supplier's dock until payment has been received, or until they acknowledge that payment has been received. So again, payment tracking can be challenging, can be daunting. A lot of teams have trouble or experience challenges managing this. Solutions like Anvyl can actually provide your team with a robust solution here. We have three-way matching in Anvyl. It's a feature that allows our customers to compare their purchase order data to their invoice data and highlight any discrepancies or any, I would say, off data that doesn't match between the two. This helps our customers to have perfect, accurate invoice data in comparison to their purchase orders, pay the correct amount to their supplier, and also make sure that there aren't any delays holding up their shipments because of payment or any payment discrepancies. The three-way matching tool also allows customers to track payments in Anvyl. That means if you have a payment installation, you're able to press the paid button within Anvyl, even type in the amount that you have paid, and that information is visible to your suppliers and visible to your team, so everyone knows that payment has already been made. Lastly, another thing that our three-way matching does is it also tracks the amount that you've ordered versus the amount that your supplier actually shipped. And what Anvyl will do is, again, highlight any discrepancies versus the amount that you ordered and any shortages or overages that your supplier may have shipped to your team. So with three-way matching, your team is able to confidently manage payments, knowing exactly what is due, knowing if there are any discrepancies or if everything is accurate, and you'll feel, you can really rely on Anvyl to help you make your payments efficiently. All right, Kim, we can move on to slide 10. All right, so one common challenge that many companies face is the complexity relating to juggling multiple products or multiple line items across multiple shipments, multiple timelines, and multiple shipping methods. This can lead to higher costs for teams, also a lot of manual typing in that data. It also leads to extended single purchase order is going to be ordered and shipped all at once. A lot of times, you might see a supplier say, hey, some of these goods are ready. We'd love to ship them out now. Or, hey, some of these goods are going to ship later. Can we combine them with another purchase order that's going to ship out in a couple of weeks? That can be really complicated or really complex for a team to manage manually, for the invoicing, for all of the payment tracking that goes with that. And Anvyl has a solution for our customers that like to combine different purchase orders or combine line items from different purchase orders into one shipment. We call this our shipments consolidations feature, and our platform allows you and your supplier to combine line items from different orders into a single shipment. You also can link tracking information. You can link the documents like a packing list, bills of lading, any of the documentation related to that shipment, and also track shipment costs as well. So if you wanted to track all of the costs for that shipment across multiple POs and see your landed cost, you would be able to do that with Anvyl's shipment consolidation feature as well. We see this a lot with our customers. It's been something that a lot of them have come to us saying, hey, we have a lot of trouble, tracking orders manually. Our shipment consolidation feature really helps to remove that challenge from their lives, and their suppliers are able to collaborate with them. So if the suppliers are the ones creating those consolidations, they are able to create them in Anvyl and cut out the extra work for customers. All right. Let's jump to the next slide. So now I'm just going to give you some real life examples of these customers that are using these features or solving these challenges that I mentioned. So when it comes to three-way matching, our customer Gooder, they use Anvyl to compare their purchase order data against their invoice data. For example, let's say that they ordered, 30 units at a $1 unit cost, but they receive an invoice for 30 units at a $2 unit cost, Anvyl will immediately flag that issue to the Gooder team and give them the ability to make updates or make adjustments with one easy click in the Anvyl platform. They also rely on Anvyl to flag any discrepancies between the amount that they ordered and the amount that the supplier shipped. So what Anvyl is going to do is compare the amount ordered versus the invoiced amount versus the amount shipped to make sure that the customer is not overpaying or underpaying on their purchase orders and not causing any disruptions. Our other customers, Cakes Body and Novos, also use Anvyl's three-way matching to compare the quantity ordered versus quantity shipped, but they're also tracking their payments within Anvyl. That means that they are marking their purchase orders or marking their shipments as paid using Anvyl's tool for payment tracking. Now, when it comes to consolidating shipments, our customers GreenTex, Heyday, and Nulk use Anvyl's split shipment and shipment consolidation features to split their orders into multiple shipments across multiple ship dates, across multiple shipping methods. So let's say some of the purchase order needs to go air versus some of the purchase order needs to go ocean. They would be able to make those splits within Anvyl. Suppliers also can collaborate, and if they have, let's say, a delay or they have more visibility into what's happening, the suppliers are also able to create those consolidations or those split shipments for the customer, cutting out the additional work that the customer has to do. If the supplier already knows what's being split, they're able to create those splits in Anvyl as well. All right. Lastly, centralizing your shipment data into a centralized view. So this would be the option where our customers are adding their shipment tracking information to Anvyl and getting real-time updates of those shipments' progress all the way down to delivery. Our customers Kula, Brooklyn, and Heyday use Anvyl's container shipment tracking for pulling real-time shipment data into their Anvyl POs. This centralizes both their PO data and their shipment data, allowing them to efficiently track the progress of that purchase order from shipment from their supplier's facility all the way down to delivery in their warehouse. Instead of them having to go to multiple places to find this information, all of it lives in Anvyl, where they can communicate, access the documents related to these shipments, and also see whether they've arrived yet or if they haven't. Right, so that's everything that I wanted to talk about with my brands. I think, Kim, we are moving on to our next speaker.
Fantastic. Thank you, Carissa, so much. It was really great for you to bring all those stories to life and to really hear how Anvyl can really help out really with that first mile. And it's really from that issuing that PO all the way to getting them there to finished goods to your warehouse. And I'm really excited. We're going to jump ahead a little bit here. We're going to bring Francesca on, and she's going to talk a little bit about how ShipBob, some of those tools help really on that fulfillment side and really help to optimize. So take it away, yes, Francesca. Thank you.
Yeah, continuing with connectivity, I think it's very important if you have a lot of data to make sure it's connected. So that's mainly what I'm be talking about is visibility and connecting the data so you can actually use it. And a lot of the partners on this call today are talking about connectivity in some way. And so talking about ShipBob and how we provide visibility as well as connecting this data, it's one fulfillment platform that runs everything. So you see 100+ channels and integrations, sales channels, marketplaces, and integrations where we're sharing information. And that powers our 50+ facilities in the US, Canada, EU, UK, and Australia, and then omni-channel. And so I've heard so many brands use different 3PLs to fulfill different parts of the world. Again, everything's going to be really relevant to what your brand is looking to do. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing in logistics, but there's no connectivity there of data. They have to manage so many different processes. So we're trying to eliminate that for brands by bringing the network as well as connectivity with the technology. And you can see a lot of the brands down here are omni-channel. So I'll talk about a couple of them. Dossier is a direct to consumer, but has been omni-channel as well on some retailers' websites, as well as ships internationally and moving inventory internationally here soon. And ShipBob powers all of that. One fulfillment platform, one warehouse management system where all that data is all together. And then an example I'll talk about too, it's a little bit different. I talked about in the beginning that we're powering brands' warehouses. Spikeball and Pit Viper that are displayed on here use us to run their warehouse, as well as Pit Viper uses us internationally in our international facilities. So they're able to connect both their warehouse data and what's going on in real time, as well as our other facilities and what's going on in real time. So pretty interesting stuff going on over here, just connecting all the data. And so going to the next slide, I'll talk about some of the challenges merchants face and the way that we use data to kind of improve this process. So challenge is fast and affordable delivery. And this seems like it's like table stakes. Like everyone wants to have 2-day shipping. It's a standard that everyone should have. But being strategic about it and where you place your inventory is important. It's not something that brands just know how to do. So our warehouse management system actually tracks this for our brand. So when someone comes on board with ShipBob, all that information is tracked in an analytics part of our dashboard that's going to recommend, hey, this is your current SKU mix and what like locations you're in and how much of each SKU, but recommending like here, these are, you should actually put this much of this SKU into these facilities. And you can kind of toggle it based on, do you want to do more facilities, less facilities, and make very educated decisions. But how do you get there if, first of all, you're not using a 3PL that does this, or you're doing something on your own? So I think if you're outsourcing fulfillment, seeing if you have a consultant you can work with, like there's a bunch of consultants that do choose new fulfillment partners for brands for this reason of the mix and just optimizing fulfillment. And they'll do that on the front end. You can ask your current 3PL if they're going to do analysis for you. We run analysis for brands before we bring them on board as well, because we don't have the data. So we just pull what customers have you shipped to in the last 3 months, the addresses, and kind of doing that mix of inventory as well. So ask your 3PL if they can do it. Ask a new 3PL if you're looking to work with someone to do this for you as well. Or you could even, if you can afford it, go to consultant and they can prescribe a mix to you. But people should be willing to do this. And again, if you're a smaller brand, maybe you just start off in one fulfillment center, but it's always good just to get options and see, like, is there like options for efficiency? And so if you have your own warehouse, that's where it gets a little bit tricky. Either you have to evaluate, am I using a WMS like ShipBob that builds these, has this analytics, or will build an integration into something that would have these analytics? Or am I going to ask my WMS provider to build this functionality? That can be a hard conversation to have. Or if you have different systems like an OMS and IMS, a bunch of different things, just figuring out like, how are we going to put this data together? We're always happy to talk to everyone and consult on what's the best mix, but just kind of thinking about like the challenges of fast and affordable delivery. It really is just transparency of your data and knowing where to place your inventory. We have a ton of brands that actually have us place their inventory for them. And it's a program that we had just launched called Inventory Placement Program. So we have brands using 5 to 6 facilities and are able to optimize like shipping, provide 2-day shipping, and then over the long term, yes, like they have storage costs in more facilities, but over the long term, they're reducing the cost because they're shipping across less zones, and it's just a better customer experience. So placing inventory closer to your customers is just a way to provide that fast and affordable delivery. And the goal is to place your inventory closer to international customers in the future. So finding a fulfillment partner as well, either they can ship internationally or have the international facility so you can place inventory next to your customers. These are all things to think about when you're thinking about, what do I want to do? Maybe you're preparing for this peak. It's still possible to make these changes. It's only July, or preparing for next year and thinking about how you want to optimize your fulfillment. So that's the first challenge. And we'll go on to the next one, the next slide. So accurate inventory and order data. Since Evan's also going to talk about this as well, because they're one of our integrations and someone that actually lays on top of us to comply complexity, as well as connect inventory from other places outside of what ShipBob actually tracks. So digitizing your warehouse management system is just probably the way to go. Whether you have separate systems, you have systems that you built and you connected together if you're running your own warehouse, or you have a warehouse management system that's not ShipBob, just being able to get those updates in real time as someone's picking an order and taking something off the shelf, the SKU count or that inventory number should go down in real time, as well as order data when things are being picked, packed, and shipped. You should have that information in real time, whether you're running your own warehouse or you're not even in the warehouse and you're outsourcing fulfillment. I think it's even more pertinent then, because you want to know what's going on inside the fulfillment center. And having these alerts is going to keep you in real time knowing, is there something on hold or exception? Am I out of stock of something? Is there an issue with orders going out? And really just keeping you, like Carissa said, like proactive about your brand. There's a lot of times that you can look at your inventory and orders and you can be proactive about issues or returns before it piles up into a bigger issue. Now inventory is out of stock and stuff like that. So no matter what like system you're using to run your warehouse, I think that you should always make sure it's giving you the info in real time if it can connect to everything that's running your warehouse. Make sure it's all connected, and then also make it easy for you. Like ShipBob has like inventory reorder point alerts. So you set it to a certain number and it's like, hey, if this SKU gets down to this amount, please alert me so I can reorder that with my supplier, which kind of feeds into Anvyl as well as getting the inventory back to ShipBob. So there's a lot of ways you can optimize it by just using a warehouse management system that's very tech first and does a lot of this stuff for you. And there's a lot of automation, or we're sending alerts to you on your the warehouse management system account. If there's something going on, you're never in the dark. But again, if you're running your own warehouse, like there's a lot of options. You could build your own system. You could piece systems together. You could go find a different system, but make sure if you're outsourcing with someone that you try to find someone that has all this stuff all ready to go, as well as they're using the same warehouse management system in every fulfillment center if there's multiple facilities. And again, maybe there's something they do that, like, maybe it doesn't matter for you to have separate warehouse management systems or separate 3PLs, and there's something else that they went on. That is for your brand to figure out like what's most important. I've just seen a lot of brands come to us because we're simplifying looking at the fulfillment process in so many different ways of where's the inventory across the world, managing all from one system, and then getting really good rates as well if you're just going to put all your fulfillment volume together. So digitizing warehouse management is important. And it's going to help you just run your business a little bit better. And we have brands that are 2-person operation teams that are running 6 facilities of ShipBob, just a 2-person operation team. So I think the technology really assists them there when they don't really have the bandwidth and the headcount. And then we'll go into the last challenge. So transparent post-purchase communication. And so I think this is necessary, of course, because you want to make sure the customer is getting the carrier information and tracking information as soon as possible. Again, that's table stakes. But there's been a lot of partners that we've actually partnered up with that have integrations built into us that use our fulfillment information even before the carrier picks it up and a label's been generated. And it's like, hey, the carrier has your package. Fulfillment information like your order's been picked, your order's been packed, your order is waiting for the carrier. These are all ways of communicating with the customer and kind of connecting with that customer even earlier to either advertise more products, just do like a touch of your brand, maybe communicate something that's a brand mission, and just use that information in different ways to update the customer and keep everything transparent. And it keeps it transparent for you too if you can see this tracking information in your warehouse management system. Like everything should be flowing in there where it's like your Shopify order, what's the order number actually in your warehouse management system? What's the tracking information? And just seeing the status, because if things go wrong as well, your CX team is going to want to have an easy place to figure out, okay, what's going on even before I do reach out to our fulfillment partner. Or if you're running your own warehouse, it's kind of up to you to figure it out at that point. And using this communication as well with people doing text message updates, email updates, as well as customer service. So there's a lot of value of having a connected solution with other solutions that your e-commerce brand would need, because these post-purchase communications, like, yes, they've purchased and they're getting an email when the carrier comes. I think customers are expecting more from brands, like in just earlier touch points and communicating with them, or just not having to ask them for that data and being able to look that up on your own. If there's like a CX person that needs to resolve an issue, it just makes everything a little bit easier. And it just makes everything a little bit more unified. And so then you're able to empower your CX team to support everybody with accurate information. But you're able to use this information in a lot of marketing ways that maybe you didn't before. So it's a way to provide you with transparency and information, provide your customers with transparency, but also just extra touch points to advocate for your brand and advertise your brand in a way that everyone's going to the tracking page. Like if you've not looked at a tracking page for an order you've done, you've really done something. Cause I think it's like instant gratification to see like, oh, my order's coming and stuff like that. So it just a really cool way to communicate with your customers and just using that information that maybe they wouldn't be privy to just kind of engage them and get them excited again about your brand, or just communicate with them how the order is going before they'd even expect it. And then we'll go to the next slide, and it talks about how to connect with us. So you can also reach out to me after the fact with this QR code. We have a quote form and I will reach out to you. So if you wanted to start with us, there's some fun incentives there that I can talk to you guys about. But with that, that's all I have. And I think we're going to kick it to the next speaker.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Francesca. That was really helpful. I love all those examples that you walked through and really brought it to life there. Connor, welcome. And if you could just introduce yourself, and we have Connor here from Sin7, and if you could just introduce yourself and then jump right on in.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Kim. My name's Connor Miller. I am our senior partner manager over here at Sin7, and I work with a wide breadth of tech partners such as Anvyl and ShipBob. I work with referral partners, and I also work with implementation partners who, pending you decide to move forward and think that Sin7 is the solution for you in unison with Anvyl and ShipBob, an implementation partner would be brought in to ensure that all three systems are talking to each other accurately, effectively, and in accordance with your workflows and needs. So Anvyl covered the first leg of inventory visibility, which is wickedly important. I come from an e-commerce and supply chain background, and I have spent thousands of hours sending emails to China, Romania, saying, hey, where is my stuff? What is the production status? When is it hitting the dock? When is it going to be on a boat? It is a full-time job for 1, 2, even 3 employees to manage if you're managing it out of Gmail alone. So Carissa, thank you very much for teeing it up. And similarly with Francesca's solution with ShipBob, also spent thousands of hours pulling my hair out in warehouses trying to figure out how to get shipments out the door during a Q4 holiday push without shipments being late, making sure they're timely, and ensuring customer satisfaction in unison with drastically cutting your margin and helping your bottom line with consolidated shipping rates that are offered by solutions such as ShipBob. So Sin7, where do we fit into the equation? So yeah, Anvyl being first leg, ShipBob being last leg. Sin7 is the middle leg. We live right in the middle. So we want to be your one-stop shop login for all things inventory related. We like to call ourselves a connected inventory performance platform. Connected being we are the central hub that actually pushes data to all other channels within your ecosystem, or brings data in from all other cogs within your ecosystem. So for sourcing, you would place purchase orders out of Sin7. Now I know Anvyl talked about a purchase order placement functionality as well. That would simply be an API connection and workflow discussion. So whether it be placing POs out of Anvyl and bringing them down into Sin7, or placing them in Sin7, which push up to Anvyl, that would be a workflow decision for your company. In terms of storage, we then store all of your goods. So we tell you where your goods are in the ecosystem. Are they in your local DC? Are they in your local DC in unison to a 3PL? What's in your brick and mortar stores, etc. Sales. So all sales orders will come into Sin7 so that we can see what inventory is allocated to your sales orders and have an accurate inventory number that we know we can sell against. We also will be able to see what's on hand and the COGS related to that inventory. We'll talk about that later. Billing, you can actually place bills against your purchase orders within Sin7 that will push outbound to your suppliers, come back in. We have a native integration with both Xero and QuickBooks to ensure that everything financially related is buttoned up on the back end. For reporting, we have a wide breadth of reporting functionality, whether it be inventory velocity reports, projecting future sales, COGS reports, tons of reporting, and restock points. So if you do have inventory levels that are running low, we will have auto triggers that say, hey, a purchase order needs to go ASAP to said supplier based on their lead times and what our optimal in-stock quantity will be. There's a matrix in the back end that will produce that purchase order, and you can either have it auto send or sent to a manager to have their eyes on that actual purchase order to authorize the outbound PO. So that's a wide snapshot of what we do. Kim, we can go to the next slide. So first I want to talk about where's my stuff? So long gone are the days of single channel product selling. So today product sellers, while they might start in a brick and mortar within 1 to 2 years, they're selling on Shopify. Then another year, Amazon FBA is typically next in line. They might think that their brick and mortar or see that their brick and mortar motion is most successful, open up a slew of other stores. So we'll be able to see where your products are within your different selling channels, but we'll also be able to see where your products are within your different distribution channels. So if you do have your own DC in unison with a slew of other 3PL offerings such as ShipBob, you'll be able to see how many SKUs I have in each location. And we can go to the next slide. And in each location, we're going to want to know what is the true cost of goods sold for that unit. So we see a lack of COGS visibility in a lot of IMS solutions. Most inventory management solutions use average cost to calculate COGS. So they'll look at the sum total of units divided by the purchase price on all POs related to the SKU, and then they call that COGS. That's not true COGS, that's average costs. So, and we do offer average costs, but it's used for informational purposes and estimating and will not actually affect your profit loss statement. It is displayed next to the price values on each product screen, but it's truly just a reference point. So costs are assigned to a product when a purchase invoice is authorized, but COGS are assigned to a sale using FIFO costing method when the ship tab is authorized. If a ship has not been authorized for a sale, then COGS will still show at 0. So when ShipBob actually dispatches some of your products, that is the trigger point to then calculate COGS. Also, the landed cost for each of those SKUs at those different DCs might be different. Freight to Florida is much different than freight to California. Or if you purchase that SKU during a different month or at a lower order quantity, you might have a different multiplier attached to the actual cost of that good. So it's paramount that you have a system that tracks true FIFO, COGS costing to all of your SKUs in all locations. Kim, we can go to the next slide. Third main challenge is lack of inventory status visibility. So if your sales reps, for example, log into your IMS, they're going to want to know what they can actually sell against and not see some sort of arbitrary stock number. So a product within your ecosystem through its selling journey goes through a bunch of stages. So first stage being on hand. How many items are in stock? How many can I go touch currently? Then there's available. So and that is the quantity of items that are available for allocation. It's computed as a difference between on-hand inventory and allocated inventory. Allocated inventory being the quantity of items currently allocated to a sales order. Then we have on order. That's the quantity of items with authorized purchase orders, but they have not yet been received. And then we have in transit. So how many items are currently in transit between my organizations? So if your purchase order arose at one ShipBob 3PL location, ShipBob looked at the purchase order and said, hey, we think that this inventory would actually be optimized if it were in X, Y, or Z other 3PL location. You'd be able to see what inventory is currently in transit natively within your ecosystem. So it doesn't make sense to track your inventory if you don't know what it is or where it is, what it costs, what can be sold against, and then when am I going to receive my next restock. Kim, we can go to the next slide. One of our favorite customers, Megan Fabulous, they are a recent case study of ours. They're a prime example of a business transformed by Send7. So Megan, she started a successful clothing company that was growing rapidly, but she saw growth stall relatively quickly in year 2. And it wasn't due to lack of product or the actual creativity put into her clothing line. It was because she was so bogged down tracking inventory that she couldn't focus on what she's good at. Megan actually, they got to a point where they were taking pictures of their products, cutting them out, gluing them on poster boards. And then as sales came in, they were changing the sticky notes that were sitting next to the products so that they had a quote unquote updated inventory count. That did not work for very long. So she purchased Send7 to do a lot of the heavy operational lifting, which allowed her to stay focused on what she's great at, which is creating and designing clothes. It also allowed her to keep her staff lean by not having to hire 2, 3, 4, 5 people simply to manage inventory. Since implementing Send7, her business has grown 91%, and her direct to consumer motion has grown 252%, while her sales order velocity has more than doubled. So I really like to think of Anvyl, Send7, and ShipBob as the three-headed monster, so to speak, for all things inventory visibility. And if you are looking forward to move forward with Send7, please reach out to me directly, shoot me an email. I'd love to take you on a discovery call, on a demo, and talk about how we will live in your ecosystem in unison with both Anvyl and ShipBob, pending your needs. And that is all I have, Kim. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much. As Connor said there, we are just absolutely just really scratching the surface of the challenges and the complexities and the ways that there's some really constantly evolving, forward-thinking technology out there available for brands that play really nice together. Connectivity, I really liked how Connor was talking about, there's like workflow decisions. So a lot of the ways that all these things can interact together is based on how you want to run your business, your unique needs, the way that you're set up. And I know that all of the partners here on this call are more than happy to make that a reality for you and figure out what we can do to get things working together, talking together, and optimized. So we've got a few minutes here left, so I would love to open it up for some questions. For the panelists, or sorry, excuse me, the attendees, please feel free to pop some questions in the chat there, and a couple of them have already come through. So while these are coming in, I will go here to one of the ones here that came through. This one would be for Anvyl. So Carissa, the question was, I have a freight forwarder that usually provides shipment data. Can they access Anvyl? How does that work? Walk us through that, please.
Yeah, so Anvyl has the ability for you to add, let's say, a third-party collaborator. That would be someone who isn't necessarily part of your internal team. Maybe you don't want them to see all of your data in Anvyl because they don't manage every single purchase order and you don't want them to have visibility to that. We have something called third-party collaborators, which allows you to add a user to Anvyl. They have restricted view on certain things, but you can select the data that they're able to see and the purchase orders that they have access to, and they would be able to contribute information like tracking information, container information, bill of lading information, and also upload documentation to the Anvyl platform. They even can send messages and update certain milestones on the progress of the PO. So if you have a freight forwarder, let's say even a warehouse staff that you would like to have access to Anvyl to either see incoming POs or provide some sort of information or updates on the PO, you can do that using our third-party collaborator feature.
Great. Thanks, Carissa. Another one came in. I think this one probably makes sense to go to Francesca. And the question is, and I think see if this makes sense, as when does it make sense for a brand to transition to using multiple facilities?
Yeah, so I think you should consult with someone if you don't have a fulfillment partner. Consult with your fulfillment partner because it's really going to depend on storage costs as well as your SKU count. But as brands have scaled up their volume, SKU count becomes a little bit less relevant because you want to make sure that your outbound orders are like exceeding and scaling in line with your SKUs if you're adding more SKU count. And I think about inventory management being a pain point a lot for brands that have a higher SKU count, like apparel, accessories, and footwear and stuff like that. So I would say it really depends on the brand and your SKU count. But if you have like a solid SKU count of like 100 SKUs or less, like that's pretty low compared to a lot of these apparel brands have thousands and thousands of SKUs. But I would say if your shipping across country and you only have one location, maybe you don't need 2 facilities. Maybe you just need to move to one central location. But it's really just dependent on where the brand is at and how you've been scaling and just the amount of SKUs that you have. But I think it's always a good conversation to have if you're outsourced, or even if you have your own warehouse and you're looking to expand, either having a new warehouse or utilizing someone at ShipBob where you could use a hybrid solution of just looking at the cost there of, okay, I'm going to be paying more pallet size or more pallets or for more bin space or shelf space. But doing the analysis of, okay, now I'm going to be reducing this amount of zones as well as this amount of time. And like, what are the benefits of that in the long term? Because sometimes in the front end, you're just going to have to pay for more storage. But on the long run, you are going to save money in not shipping across the country. So I would say every brand should be considering it. If you're just starting out, maybe not. But if you've been scaling pretty consistently, it's always great to have a conversation, just see if it makes sense, because you don't have to be in 6 facilities. Like you can be in 2 facilities, do each coast, and like that kind of satisfies it until you start scaling your volume more and more. So really good questions. Lean into your fulfillment providers and just partners because they should be doing these analyses for you. But I think any brand should be evaluating these things at all different times.
Great. Thanks, Francesca. That was a great question. Another one that came through here, I think this one makes sense for Connor, and it's really about like deciding on those workflows. So it sounds like you've got a really great background as actually being on the e-commerce side, and then in your current role, can you talk through a little bit about when you're working to have these technologies talk together? What are some things to keep in mind, and particularly from the Sin7 perspective?
Yeah, great question. I think the number one thing to keep in mind is how many of your employees will need to access each system, and then keep workflows as consolidated as possible in one system. So if there are 2 systems and each system performs the same functionality, I would do your best to look at all of the functionalities within your ecosystem you need to access. And if there is one system that reigns supreme, I would make that your central system to limit as much as possible the amount of logins and actual areas you're going to operate within your business. Now, the other platforms that you might not be working in as much does not make them any less important. You're still going to be logging into them for visibility purposes. But in terms of where you want to log in and how often you want to log in and how many users you want to have, I would just consolidate as much as possible. And I typically find that most workflows are owned within the IMS system because it is a central hub that sends POs out, receives stock, absorbs sales orders, and then also sends sales orders downstream into your actual DC channels. So most of our Sin7 customers eat, breathe, live out of Sin7, and then they push data autonomously in the back end to their distribution channels and bring in visibility upstream from their first mile channels. So
fantastic. Great answer, Connor. And I know the different technology partners can help you work through your workflows, what makes the most sense, and get started up and running there. There's been a couple questions that have come through around metrics and measuring success and things like that. So I'm going to like to end the webinar doing a round robin. And if I can ask each panelist, what is like, if you had one metric to look for seeing how your logistics visibility is going, what would you recommend that brands look at and work to optimize for first? So anybody want to kick it off, or I can. Carissa, I see your smile. I know you think through this all the time.
Can you actually repeat the question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
In terms of logistics visibility, there's been several questions that have come through from the attendees about what metrics are important to look at. So from your perspective, Chris, and I know you work day to day with brands, large, small, new, single product, multi-product, what would you say is a metric that is important for brands to think through when they're thinking through their logistics trying to optimize that for their logistics visibility?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say the most common, and these are not all of them, but the most common like trends or things that our customers are trying to follow are, of course, transit time. That's a big one. What is the transit time from either PO cut or production start down to when the purchase order has arrived to our warehouse, or when from production down to when it ships? What Anvyl is able to do is track each of those major milestones and count the days, the number of days between each of those. So if you wanted to look at the entire transit time or lead time between PO cut and PO arrival to warehouse, you also have different milestones where we're able to cut down, okay, we have a 30-day lead time or 30-day, processing time. However, from PO acceptance to PO ship, maybe it's 12 days. So that is really helpful for our customers. They're able to track the time from the PO cut down to when the PO arrives to their warehouse, and they're able to look at all the major milestones within there as well. So that's a big one. Another thing that our customers like to track or like to compare is what the agreed upon lead time that their suppliers have confirmed, and then looking at the actual lead time. So a supplier says, hey, it's typically going to take us 30 to 45 days, maybe 6 months on the production process for this PO. What the customer can do after that PO has actually been closed is see, okay, did this purchase order actually take the 6 months, or was it longer, or was it shorter? Do we need to plan ahead and plan for our inventory to make sure that we have more than 6 months worth of inventory, because it's going to take a long time for the goods to come, or longer than we expected, or longer than what our supplier provided to us? So I would just say lead time in general is really important to a lot of our customers, but having that agreed upon and stored upon lead time and being able to compare it to the actual data that Anvyl tracks has been really helpful for a lot of our customers.
Yeah, it's super helpful. Thanks, Carissa. Francesca, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm going to give multiple as well, because I feel like I can't pick one.
Can't narrow it down.
That a lot of people don't think about is like average time to fulfill. So looking at both, if you're fulfilling house as well as you have a 3PL partner that you're outsourcing with, how long does it take them to get the order out the door? A lot of people have, if you someone orders before this time, like on this day, it's going to go out same day, and there's cutoffs. And so just keeping your team or your 3PL honest about how long it takes something to fulfill. Because once you give it to the carriers, like, yes, you can track average transit time and be more specific about like, hey, I want to turn off using this carrier. Maybe like during this time where there's an influx of orders, I want to use regional carriers. But like once you hand off to the carriers, sometimes it's out of your control. And we've seen packages that have not gotten to us in time that we thought. So I think the one you can control the most and keep people honest to is average time to fulfill, and just keeping your 3PL and your team honest to make sure that orders get out really fast. Because I think I have such an expectation of orders being fulfilled fast, because I order from a lot of brands that we fulfill for, as well as Amazon even offered me to ship something today. If I ordered with like earlier today, they were going to like fulfill something to my house by end of day. So I think customers are always looking at this, because I did order for a smaller shop that was on like Shop Pay website. So I was like, okay, it seems pretty legit, but like I've never heard of them before. And it took them a while to fulfill the order. And I was like, is this a fake account that I just bought like a wall hook from, like something so random? But then I realized that they were just an Etsy seller, and like they're just kind of a smaller business and slower. But I think if you're able to fulfill faster, people have more trust in you. And it just drives that brand experience with the customer again. And then you're communicating the fulfillment information and the shipping information as soon as possible. So yeah, average day to fulfill would be probably the biggest one for us.
Fantastic. Thanks. Connor, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I have three, kind of four. So all three of our platforms, at the end of the day, we are trying to achieve a optimal customer experience. Nothing cripples a business more, I believe, than a stock out. So a customer coming to your website, excited to purchase your product, ready to give you money, and it's out of stock. So what is your stock out rate? As in, how long were active SKUs unsellable? Also your oversold rate. So if a customer comes on to Shopify, purchases whatever it might be, and then we have to turn around and ping customer service and say, hey, will you please send an email to customer XYZ that actually lets them know we can't fulfill their order because the product was not in stock, but it will be in stock 2, 3, 4 months down the road. That is also a horrible customer experience. And then your actual error rate in shipping. So we don't touch this. This would be ShipBob's responsibility, but just ensuring that the right product is in the box. And while that does sound simple, it's not as simple as one might think. And when you're churning out thousands of orders a day, errors happen. So all three of those directly touch the customer experience. And then in terms of just driving your business's growth, I think having true COGS is extremely important. So you know which SKUs are your actual profit winners. At the end of the day, we're all trying to make money. The higher the profit margin, the better. So being able to make data-driven decisions and reorder those higher performing SKUs is paramount to growth.
Fantastic. Well, I want to have a sincere thank you to our panelists today. Francesca, Carissa, Connor, thank you so much for taking the time and to share some of your insights and how brands can increase visibility across their supply chain. And huge thanks to our attendees today for joining us today. We hope that we accomplished the goal that we set forth, which was to educate you about some new tools and some different ways to think about how you can optimize your supply chain.